Happiness at school is more important than academic qualifications and should even be factored into the curriculum.
That is the conclusion of a major report by Lord Richard Layard from the London School of Economics, who used data from more than 100,000 people to conclude that well-being as a pupil is a great indicator of happiness in later life.
Tim has been to a secondary school in Dartford that's made weekly Healthy Minds lessons a #1 priority.
The pathway through childhood, adolescence and beyond.
Going into year 11 there'll be a lot of exam stress.
Take a step back and think about what you should do next.
It can be paved with challenges, exams, friendships, social media, self-esteem.
Many people of our age, they deal with mental health issues and they're very scared to come out about them.
So who can tell me what catastrophising means?
At the Lee Academy in Dartford in Kent, the curriculum's been changed to try and help.
Can you think of all the different types of emotion that maybe that you have within school or maybe in your home life?
4 years ago, with 30 other schools, it introduced a new subject, Healthy Minds.
The students have one lesson per week and that's dedicated for 1 hour where they come to their Healthy Minds lesson, look at things like relationships, resilience, so things like mental health.
I think they're really important in building character and helping us develop as children.
If you've got a problem, you've been taught how to solve it or what to do.
It's all good going to maths, English, science lessons. They build your brain, but I think Healthy Minds builds characters.
A huge study of mental health, well-being and happiness is about to be published.
It's analysed data from 100,000 people, and it shows that schools and teachers can have almost as much impact on a child's happiness as they can on their academic performance, and that the impact lasts a long time.
The best predictor of whether an adult will be happy is not what the qualifications they get from their school, but how happy they are while they're at school.
Some will say, though, that good academic qualifications, that will bring about happiness, that will lead to a better job and a better life.
Happy children learn better. So there's no conflict between these objectives. They are complementary to each other.
Don't be aggressive, don't be passive, just be assertive.
Professor Layard wants more schools to follow Lee Academy's example and ensure mental health is a key part of the curriculum, even if that means less time spent studying traditional subjects like maths and science, which is what happens here.
The Healthy Minds curriculum, yes, it does take a lesson away perhaps from the core curriculum, but it is so important that it makes the students have greater well-being, stronger relationships. We've seen a reduction in bullying, we've seen higher numbers of older students supporting younger students as they've gone through the course.
Benefits that should last long into adult life. Tim Muffet, BBC News.
Well, Professor Richard Layard, who you saw in that report, is with us now. Good morning.
Hello.
Hello. Some people are going to be wondering, to ensure a child's happiness, is that really the role of the school and a coach?
Well, the extraordinary thing is that schools do have a huge effect, and what our study shows is that they have as much of an effect on the happiness of the children as they do on their GCSE results. And in fact, they have as much of an effect on the happiness of the children as everything we know about the parents. So some schools are doing a really good job on happiness and some are not. And really, what we want is a happiness revolution, you know, where every school is putting the happiness of the children as an equal goal to its academic performance. Having that embedded in a series of values that influence what happens in the school, teaching professional life skills like we've just seen on there, and I would say encouraging schools to measure the happiness of their children so that they see how well they're doing on that as well as on GCSE, because if you don't measure it, you probably don't treasure it.
Professor, I mean, all of that makes it makes sense, you know, and if it works, that's wonderful. But I'm of a certain age, you're of a certain age. I suspect that when you were at school, no one bothered to ask you if you were happy, and yet people seem to get by.
Well, actually, I went to chapel twice a day, and that influenced me a lot. That was a serious inquiry into how you could cultivate.
But that was a religious.
How you could cultivate your mind and your thoughts for the good of the world.
But you know what I'm saying? Quite a lot of people.
If I can just say,
Yeah.
what's lacking, and of course I'm not currently a believer, But what's lacking is the equivalent in a secular world where people are brought face to face with the really important things in life, things that are really important for them for achieving contentment and a calm mind, but things which are really important for other people, which is that we behave well to each other, and we actually get a lot of our happiness from making other people happy. So I believe strongly, and this is the movement which we have called Action for Happiness, that we need a new culture in this country where everybody's takes as their aim in life to create as much happiness in the world as they can, little misery. The way they go about daily life, the way they choose their careers and so on. I think we can have a happier world, but we've got to be deliberate about it. It's not something that just happens on the side.
Professor, how do you measure this? You said you should measure people's happiness or children's happiness. How do you quantify happiness? Because what makes me happy, I imagine, is not necessarily what makes Charlie happy.
No, that's the whole point. Different things make different people happy, but you can measure how happy they are. There are very, very good ways of measuring how happy people are, just like there are good ways of measuring
How much they smile? I mean, I'm not being facetious, but genuinely, how do you measure happiness?
You ask the batteries of questions about different aspects of their feeling, and then they get combined in a single index. Or you can just ask them one question: how satisfied are you with your life? And that is a question which has been asked to millions of people around the world, and we know a great deal about it.
A 13-year-old in the height of puberty, peer pressure, exams. They're never going to say they're happy or satisfied.
There are 25 questions in what's called the Strengths and Difficulties questionnaire. This has been used over and over again. Works really well. But I also think that it's not just a matter of children. We shouldn't assume that, once you're an adult, there's nothing you can do about your happiness. So that's why we have a wonderful course that we've been developing, and I'm sure there are others, but this is a course that will prove in the consequence, as we've researched it, to increase your happiness by 25% by giving you the basic findings of positive psychology. What makes people happy? How can they calm their minds through mindfulness? How can they achieve greater happiness by putting themselves in the position where they're mainly trying to pursue the happiness of other people, which is ultimately one of the most rewarding things for you and certainly makes the best society. So we can have a better society.
If there's someone watching now who's feeling miserable, one thought, what's going to maybe change a little bit of the mindset?
Take our course called Exploring What Matters and find it under Action for Happiness, because I do think that you have to get a perspective and it's not just one thought, it's a whole mindset.
Lovely to see you this morning, thank you.
No, pleasure, thank you for your nice questions.
We're going to be talking to Jeff